Every child on Earth knows what a wolf is, not because they've seen one. Almost none of them ever will. They know because we told them. We put the wolf in every story we ever wrote about danger. The creature in the forest, the shadow behind the door, the thing that eats you if you wander too far from the path. Before most children learn what a wolf actually looks like, they have already been taught to fear it, and almost everything they were taught is wrong. This is not the history of a monster. This is the story of the animal we turned into one, and then nearly destroyed for the crime of being what we said it was. Start with the fact that should end the argument before it begins. The dog sleeping at the foot of your bed is a wolf, not descended from something like a wolf, not a distant cousin. The domestic dog, every breed, every size, from the Labrador to the Chihuahua, is a direct descendant of the gray wolf. Same species. If you've ever buried your face in a dog's neck and called it family, you already know what a wolf is. You just don't know you know. Somewhere between 15,000 and 40,000 years ago, a wolf that was a little less afraid than the others crept close to a human fire and stayed. We told that story in episode 2 of this series. The friendliest wolves survived beside us. Over thousands of years, they became dogs. We loved what they became so completely that we wrote poems about them and wept when they died. And the wolves that didn't come to the fire, the ones that stayed wild, stayed in the forest, stayed exactly what they were. We decided those were evil. We wrote them into our nightmares. We made them the villain of every fairy tale. And then we tried to wipe them off the face of the earth. For most of human history, across most of the world, the wolf was hunted with a hatred reserved for almost nothing else alive. Not because it was dangerous, because we believed it was. We told ourselves the wolf was a killer of children, a devourer of livestock, a creature of pure malice that murdered for pleasure. Governments put prices on their heads. In America, the first bounty on wolves was placed in Massachusetts in 1630, before there was a country. For the next 300 years, the killing never stopped. Settlers used guns, dogs, traps, and poison. Between 1870 and 1877, hunters were killing an estimated 100,000 wolves a year across the American West. 100,000. Every year, for 7 years straight. And still, it wasn't fast enough. In 1915, the United States government hired its own professional wolf hunters. Federal employees whose only job was to find wolves and end them. By the time they were done, they had killed over 24,000 more. By the middle of the 20th century, the gray wolf had been erased from nearly every inch of the lower 48 states. A few hundred survived in a corner of Minnesota. The rest were gone. An animal that had lived on this land for hundreds of thousands of years, wiped out in 3 centuries because we were afraid of a story we made up about it. Here is what the story left out. Wolves almost never attack people. In all of North America, across the last 100 years, dogs have killed more than 300 people. Wolves have killed 2. The animal we built our darkest legends around, the beast of 1,000 horror tales, is less dangerous to you than the golden retriever next door. Attacks by healthy, non-rabid wolves on humans are so rare that scientists track every single one as an extraordinary event. You are more likely to be struck by lightning, more likely to be killed by a cow, more likely to die from a bee sting than to be harmed by a wolf. But we never let the truth get in the way of a good villain. The wolf was too useful as a monster. It lived in the dark places, the forests and the mountains we hadn't conquered yet, and we needed something out there to be afraid of, so we could feel brave for pushing into it. The wolf became the face of everything wild that we hadn't tamed. And in taming the land, we decided the wolf had to go. Not because it was truly a threat, because it represented the idea of a threat, and that was enough. And what we lost when we killed them, we didn't understand until decades later, when we accidentally discovered what happens to a world without wolves. In 1926, the last wolf in Yellowstone National Park was shot and killed. For nearly 70 years after that, the park existed without the animal that had shaped it for thousands of years. And the park fell apart in ways nobody predicted. Without wolves to keep them in check and keep them moving, the elk herds swelled. They stopped being careful. They grazed the riverbanks bare, eating every young tree and shrub down to the dirt. The aspen and the willow vanished. The beavers who needed those trees disappeared. The songbirds that nested in them went quiet. The riverbanks, stripped of roots, began to erode and collapse. The rivers themselves started to widen and shift. One missing animal, and the land began to unravel like a thread pulled from a sleeve. Then, in 1995, they brought the wolves back. 41 wolves released into the park. And what happened next has been studied by scientists ever since. The elk changed their behavior. They stopped lingering in the open valleys and the stream beds. The trees began to grow back. The beavers returned. The birds came back. The rivers, shored up by new root systems, began to stabilize. Scientists call this a trophic cascade, a chain reaction that ripples down through every level of an ecosystem from a single change at the top. The story became famous, and it should be, though researchers are still debating exactly how far the cascade reached and how much credit belongs to the wolf alone. What nobody disputes is this: when the wolf disappeared, the land suffered, and when the wolf returned, the land began to heal. The park needed the animal we had spent a century trying to erase. Think about what that means. We killed the wolf because we called it a destroyer, and it turned out the wolf was a builder. It held the forest together. It kept the rivers in their banks. It balanced a system so complex that we couldn't even see it was there until we broke it. We were afraid of the wrong thing. We were always afraid of the wrong thing. And the cruelest part of this story is the one we never talk about. We loved the wolf. We loved it so much that we reached into its bloodline and pulled out the gentlest versions and kept them and bred them and called them family. The dog, the animal we trust with our children, the one we let sleep in our beds, the one we mourn like a brother when it dies, is a wolf that we asked to change. And it changed for us, and we loved it for changing. But the wolves that didn't change, the ones that stayed wild, stayed honest, stayed exactly what nature made them, we called those ones monsters. We hunted them from helicopters. We poisoned them. We shot them in their dens while they slept beside their pups. We did not love the wolf for what it was. We only loved what we could make it into. That is the real story. Not a fairy tale about a beast in the woods. A story about us. About what we do to the things we don't understand, and how long it takes us to realize we were wrong. The wolf is still out there, not in the numbers it once was, not on the land it used to walk, but out there, in the few wild places we haven't paved or fenced. It doesn't need us. It never did. It asks for nothing. It takes what it needs from the land, and it keeps the land alive in return. And it has done this for longer than we have been a species. The least we can do, after the bounties and the poison and the centuries of killing an animal for a story we wrote about it, is to stop telling the story wrong. If you made it this far, you already know the wolf isn't what they told you. Please leave a comment and tell me, when did you first start to see it differently? And subscribe. Turn on notification, because this series is built on animals we got wrong. Some we forgot. Some we abandoned. And this one, we tried to erase, for the crime of being wild in a world that wanted everything tame. The next one is coming. Ring the bell and don't let the real story go untold. Thank you, and have a great day.